You are listening to Sean Harrison on Amp Life Talk Radio, a place for amputees and those dealing with limb loss. The views expressed on the show by the host, co-hosts, and guests are their own. Always seek medical advice from a licensed medical professional.
And hello, everybody out there in Facebook land. Man, I'm here. I survived. I made it back from my vacation. So, for some of you out there who basically follow me, you noticed last week I did not have a show. So, and I tried to take a vacation, but man, I'm telling you, taking a vacation is such a hard thing to do. I don't know how to relax. It's one of the things I figured out about vacation. I don't know how to relax. So I need to learn how to relax. Yes, I went to Vegas. Hey, my brother from another mother. What's up? Dr. T. Hi, Glenda. How are you? So this is more of a Facebook show because I have a pre-recorded show being put up over on Spreaker with my interview with the No-Handed Bandit. So if you want to go over there, I'll pull that link over here and put it up for you too if you want to hear that. It's our first show using Skype. And man, let me tell you, I had to work on some sound. Skype is going to make my life really hard because it provides a really weird sound. And my office is a mess here. So you see a different camera angle because over that way, you don't want to see what's over that way. You want to see like right in here. So you got to look at my big melon head tonight. So as you can tell, and I want to say welcome back, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Amp Life Talk Radio, a show for amputees and those affected by limb loss. Hey, if you're dealing with limb loss, I want you to know you are not alone. That statement could not ring more true tonight than ever with the show that we're going to be doing. This is not a normal show. It's going to be one of just a really short show that I'm going to get into. But there's a topic that came up while I was on vacation that I got back. I started prepping some other shows and getting stuff ready. And then I thought to myself tonight, while I'm putting up the pre-recorded interview, what can I talk about tonight with you guys? And one of the things that kind of rang out with me was something that happened recently in the news. So our topic tonight is coping with your amputation. And keep in mind, I see a lot of statements and comments when I'm in the various social media sites, especially on Facebook. I hear a lot of people or see a lot of people posting things, and a lot of people are really trying to deal with limb loss and coping with that limb loss. So tonight I wanted to touch on that a little bit. And the biggest reason I wanted to touch on that is because, as you know, I get contacted by a lot of people to be on the show. There's so many people that I want to interview, and it seems like sometimes you're just trying to put together shows and contacting people and putting all those together. It can be really hard sometimes because there's certain things I want to get out there. And then there's people you try to also give them a platform on the show. Well, before I went on vacation, for those of you that don't know, I was gone for 9 days. And I think we took off on right before the end of July. We took off and went out to Vegas and did some stuff there. But right before I did that, I was contacted by a young man who most of you probably have seen him on the show with TLC, My 600-Pound Life. And his name was, and I want to make sure I get it right, it was LB Booner. And we chatted briefly about him being on the show. He told me a little about his story. He is an amputee, and he told me how he lost a lot of weight on the show and some of the various things that he went through. And he thought he wanted to be on the show. And I really wanted to have him on the show, and we were making plans to do that. Unfortunately, he passed away, and I don't know all the circumstances of his death, so I don't want to get into that on the show. But what it did say to me was that I see so many of you out there talking about dealing with your amputation and the things that you're going through. Some of you are sad, some of you are depressed. And I got to be honest with you, I wanted to do a show on this and talk about this briefly and touch on some of this because I want you to know if you can hear my voice, I want you to know you're not alone. You definitely need to reach out to people if you find yourself feeling um, sad or depressed about your amputation. There's so many issues that face amputees: body image, depression, PTSD, so many things that go through our heads when we are faced with such a tragic loss. I wanted to make sure I just briefly touched on that tonight because that really spoke out to me because you have someone contact you and try to talk to you about telling their story, and then the next minute they're gone. And that's pretty powerful, and that really touched me. And I was really bothered by that, man. I was really saddened. I mean, I really was, because even though I didn't personally know him, I look forward to sharing all of your stories because I know how encouraging it can be to other people. And for a guy like him to go through what he went through on that talk show and to come out the other end, man, that's something to really be proud of. But depression is something that is real with amputation, and I want to make sure that we understand that amputation poses um, a lot of challenges on many different levels when you go through an amputation, not just the amputation itself, but all the things that you're going to have to deal with, physically, emotionally, socially, spiritually, financially, relationship wise, sexually. You know, I've done talks on that as far as sexual relationships with people who are amputees and how they deal with the various relationship complications from being an amputee. And there are a lot of things that we need to think about, and we need to let people know what we're feeling when we're going through things. And I think that's the biggest thing, is to let people know. Coping with your amputation, something that I see a lot on social media, various posts that I read from people having all different types of emotions or struggles with their amputation, leads to a lot of a lot of different emotional responses to their amputation. And everyone's going to be different because we're all different individuals. We have different family dynamics, work situations. All these different things are going to determine how you deal with that amputation and how we cope with our amputation. It is common, uh, and I want to make sure that it is common to feel a sense of grief and loss when you go through an amputation. Um, it is probably one of the toughest life experiences that you will go through as an individual. So it is very important for you to understand you're not alone when you're going through this stuff. So I want to make sure that we all understand what we're doing and what we're going through and how we're dealing with stuff. My phone's trying to talk to me over here. I need to get it to shut up. So when we're talking about a subject like this tonight, um, I really want you to really focus and really be honest with yourself, how you're feeling. If you need that help, if you need to speak with someone, if you need to talk with someone. But more than anything, I want you to know that it's normal. We all go through a sense of grief and loss after an amputation. And this not just necessarily right after the amputation. This can be months and years down the road as we are still trying to come to terms with that amputation and how it's affecting our life. Now, how people respond to their amputation really depends on um, them. Everybody's unique, everybody's different. We all have different makeups that make us different: our personalities, our values, our attitudes, so many things, previous life experiences, your support system, and the meaning. Um, they actually give to their amputation. Um, all of these things play a crucial role in how we are going to cope with our amputation. So tonight, let's really, if you're out there and you're listening to my voice, you're looking at my face on Facebook, because this is a Facebook live show. Um, I want you to really be truthful and honest with yourself. And if you need help, I'm actually able to respond to people via chat. Um, and even after the show, if you want to keep it private, send me an instant message. I'm going to try and provide some details. But I want to make sure that people understand that if you need to talk to someone, or if you need someone to help you, I'm definitely there. That's part of the big reason why I do this show and talk to people and talk to you and put this out there, is to try and help people deal with limb loss. What might one expect to feel after having an amputation? That is such a um, crucial question. And I'm going to post that over here because I want to hear some of your responses. What do you think about that? What does one expect to feel? What should you expect to feel after an amputation? What do you think are some of the feelings that you would expect to feel after having an amputation? Um, do you think um, your feelings should be? Where should your mindset be? Um, Feel free to post your responses to that question I just posted into the chat, and we'll kind of talk about those. But I'm going to continue on with talking about coping with your amputation, our feelings, our emotions, our mental status as we deal with our amputations. So people may experience some feelings of anxiety. There's always anger directed towards sometimes their self, if it was a disease, diabetes, or something like that, that they felt they did to themselves, a family member, caregivers. Then there's a depression. That could be something. Shock, denial, um, hopelessness, helplessness, numbness, disconnection. How many of you have felt or are feeling those types of feelings? And if you are, how does that make you feel? What do you think that is an appropriate feeling for you to feel at that moment? And I got to be honest with you. I think I have personally went through some of those myself with my amputation. So an amputation and how we cope with it is really going to depend on a lot of different things. But I think the biggest thing I want to put out there is that um, reaching out to your support, reaching out to people, finding other people that are going to help you process and deal with your emotions, your mood, how you're dealing with the amputation itself. Now, some people report feeling um, relief, um, as their amputation was probably an expected surgery or expected because of some type of ailment in a limb that was causing them pain. And getting the amputation is a resolution to um, a limb that was causing them pain in their life. So that is something that most people probably go through, and you get that relief, but you're also going to have these other feelings creep in there also, because there's the relief that you're no longer in the pain, but then there's also the regret, and did I make the right decision? And now you're dealing with, you don't have that limb. Body image can kick in. These feelings can be frightening, of course, and they can be very overwhelming at times. And people often believe that they're going crazy when they're going through something like this. It's a common, how can I say, a common trait of amputation and people, the emotions that they go through, because your emotions are all over the place when you go through something like this. And especially if you go through a traumatic injury, it could be even worse for you, reliving that moment that caused you to lose your limb or limbs. Now, people do sometimes often compare their feelings of being on the roller coaster, because one minute you're happy, one minute you're sitting there and you're crying, next minute you're reminiscent, the next minute you're going through so many emotions at that time. People typically do describe that they're being on a roller coaster, and that can be a lot, especially when you're trying to cope with that all by yourself. So don't think that you're alone when you go through an amputation. Reach out to the people that can help you. Amputee Coalition of America is a really good one, and they have a lot of good resources. I'm an amputee peer visitor, so I deal with helping people all the time, and going to peer visits. Everybody varies in age, but it's all kind of the same thing. Um, I see Greg's comment. That's me. So, and I think you're talking about the roller coaster effect of emotions. That can be a very powerful thing, because you are on like this pendulum of just swinging emotion. To one minute, you can be just the happiest person in the room. And the next minute, when everybody's gone, you're down in the dumps and you're crying and you're trying to figure out, why am I even crying? I remember having a patient one time tell me that he was a motorcycle trauma, and he was driving home and he saw a dead dog on a dog that had been hit by a car, and he couldn't understand why he was just crying. He just started crying, weeping, and he couldn't understand why that affected him so bad. So, and little things like that can trigger it and set it off, and you don't know why, and you're just trying to figure it out. And you sometimes you just think, and I remember his response to me, he's like, am I crazy? Is this normal? And I tried to tell him it's normal. I mean, it is very normal. Yes, your emotions can be all over the place. So as we talk about coping with your amputation, we got to think about the tools, resources, and how we get those emotions under control, and how we cope with them and how we deal with them. And I think just understanding, probably the biggest thing is that it's normal. I think that I want to say that again. The biggest thing that we all need to understand is that these emotions, when you go through an amputation, they are normal. You're not crazy. You're not alone. We all go through it, and we all have our different ways of coping. So that's going to be the biggest thing that we have to learn to do after an amputation. And after an amputation, it is common for people to find um, it difficult to concentrate on things, to focus on things, because you find yourself drifting. Uh, you're someone's talking to you, and then the next thing you know, you're like, "What did you say?" Because you found yourself rehashing or reliving or just zoning out uh, in a moment. Very, very normal stuff to happen to you. I'm reading Glenda's comment. She says she's just numb, but I am fortunate to have so many family members and friends. That is so true. We talk about support structure and supports your support system that's in place. That's going to be very crucial, and that's going to be play a very key role in how you deal with bouncing back and getting back up on your feet. Family members are a very important part and aspect of that. Um, and I think that's going to be one of the things that not only helps you right after your amputation, but it helps you as you get your prosthetic and you start trying to get back out into a social life. You're going to want to integrate back into life. And that integration sometimes can be hard. It can be tough, because you're going to get out there, or you're going to want to get out there. And the first time you have a few people kind of look at you and give you a stare, it can kind of mess with you a little bit. And that's where we get back into the body image issues. You have to be comfortable with who you are. You have to be comfortable with being an amputee. You have to be comfortable with wearing a prosthesis. And I think those things do take time. They just don't happen overnight. That's the first thing I want to let you know. And it's going to be a process. And I always try and tell my patients, look at it from this standpoint. When you're out there and you're wearing your prosthetic and people are seeing it, you now are an ambassador. You got to educate these people who don't know about limb loss and fill the questions. They're going to want to ask you questions, especially little kids. I get it so much. And probably because I have a stormtrooper on my leg, but but everybody is curious when they see someone with a prosthesis, especially if you're out and you're doing normal things. They don't realize that people with prosthetics can get out and do sports and walk and shop and run Spartan races and do all these different things and go to the gym. You're going to get a lot of people that come up in amazement sometimes that you're out doing what you're doing. So look at it from a standpoint that you are now an ambassador to help educate these able-bodied people with all their limbs on amputees and how we do things, and that we are just normal people that are just missing a body part and we're just trying to go on with our life. So try and keep that in mind and try not to get too upset or bothered by people looking, because a lot of times that looking is curiosity, and a lot of time that looking that they give you is they're intrigued, they want to know something. So try and help educate people too. I think that's the biggest thing. Now, as we said, it is very common for you to lose your concentration when you're out and you're doing things, whether somebody's talking to you, um, you're holding a conversation, you might zone off. If if you find yourself in this situation, just explain it to the person or just let them know. I think there's nothing wrong with that, because remember, going through an amputation puts a lot on your plate. And when you have a lot on your plate, it's just like for me, when I got a lot on my plate for work and doing the talk show and doing all the different things I do, uh, my lady Heather will look at me sometimes and go, "Are you hearing me? Are you listening to what I'm saying?" And it's just that I've just got so much going on that sometimes it's hard to actually stop and really listen to what's going on, because you got all these things swirling around in your head. Um, I believe in you need to learn how to deal with this by coping with the stresses that come from uh, having the amputation. Um, this may be able to help you with some of the emotions that you're going to be going through. And a lot of times, what we have to think about is this: the stresses that we are experiencing, I guess the way we have to look at them is, are they really stress? Are they really stress? Or is it just us feeling like, hey, this is a big deal when it's really not a big deal? I think a lot of times, too, our neighbors, our friends, our family, it's not a big deal to them um, that we are an amputee now, walking with a prosthetic or missing a limb. I think sometimes we put more focus and priority on that than they really do. You might need to develop some new ways of coping to help with the feelings and the stress that is related to your amputation. Um, Keep in mind, these feelings will settle over time. You'll get better at it. You'll get more comfortable in your own skin as an amputee. Now, when we talk about some of the things that we just talked about, what helps? What can we do? What do you, I want to put this to you and ask you this question. So, hang on. What helps you with dealing with some of the issues that we just talked about? What do you find that is helping you deal with some of the stresses that you find yourself going through uh, since your amputation in trying to cope with things? So I put that question up on the Facebook page. So feel free to share that information, because we want this show tonight to be more about us all really helping each other how to cope with our amputation. So let's use this as a good session to really put some things out there. Like I said, be open, be honest. This is something to where you may never know. You may help someone and someone may end up helping you, because you may find that you're going through the same thing that somebody else is. Um, and I'm reading Greg's comment. It's good that you have support. Um, so, Greg, having that anger sometimes, I think we need to think about why we're angry. Why are we angry, and what are we angry at? Um, at that point in time, we can start to peel back some of that and try to get to the bottom of what is the what is a point, what is a focus point, what is a cause of this anger, and that may help us also dealing with our amputation. Is your anger because of what happened with the amputation, someone who caused it, an event? That's what we have to look at, and we have to ask ourselves, by being angry, by being upset with that situation or whatever it is, how is it making life better for you now to remain angry and to be angry as far as a standpoint of, are you angry outwardly towards people? How is that helping you? We always got to think of everything from a positive standpoint, because if it's not positive, it's going to be negative. And negative means we do what? It means we're taking steps backwards. And when we lose limbs and we go through amputations, we're trying to move forward with getting back to our lives and moving on. So we really have to do some thinking about, what is making me so angry? Why am I mad? What is getting me enraged or making me having a short fuse or a temper? Um, that's something we have to think about. So Greg, feel free to keep posting. I will try to answer questions as I'm going here. Glenda, you had your first outing last Friday. Hopefully that went well. Uh, and yes, you do get some attention. So, Glenda, you got some stuff coming up with us pretty soon. So you need to get me some ideas on your design that you want for your fancy leg coming up, girl. So you're going to get even more attention. So as we move through this, let's talk about what helps. So we all have something that helps us deal with the different things that we deal with, whether it's anger, depression, sadness, lack of concentration. Uh, we don't want to be social. We don't want to go out. We have problems with people staring, uh, body image issues. What helps? That's what we have to look at. Because I think as we peel back the layers of coping and coping with whatever issue it might be, we can kind of dissect where we need to be at and how we can help ourselves deal with coping with an amputation. Now, people say that uh, some of the things that really helps them in the long term uh, is to basically find a positive in a negative. Meaning, like for me, I got to be honest, uh, I'm trying to take big old batch of lemons and I'm trying to make some sweet pink lemonade and I'm spreading it out to everybody. Good reason why I have the show. I'm fortunate to be working for my company, Synergy Prosthetics, where I get to help people on a daily. I'm with Amputee Coalition of America as a peer visitor. I'm also studying to be a counselor and broaden my base to be able to help even more people. So taking that negative and how do you find a positive in that negative? Well, we're going to have to peel some stuff back and really look at some different things and really have a serious one-on-one conversation with our inner self, our inner feelings. We're really going to have to do that. So in order for you to do that, what do you have to do? Well, you're going to have to be real. You're going to have to be honest with you. You're going to have to be honest with what is making you feel this way. That's the only way that we're going to be able to take a negative and turn it into a positive. Because when we think about it, we can find a negative in everything, but looking to find the positive in different things, it takes us stepping outside of ourselves in some way to look at really how truly blessed we are. Because trust me, you've got it bad. There's somebody out there that has it 10 times worse than what you've got. We always have to remember that. I learned that lesson when I attended an abilities expo here in our town. And I walked in and saw a group of people that I'm up here with no foot. These people had a whole other ball of wax that they were dealing with. And it made me really come to grips with how fortunate and how lucky and how blessed I was to be dealing with the stuff that I'm dealing with. So sometimes it takes us stepping outside of ourselves to really see where we truly are and to be able to appreciative. and appreciate how lucky we are. We don't have it as bad as we think we do. So that's one thing to think about when we talk about what helps us, turning a negative into a positive. Now, most of us, when you first become an amputee, sometimes you feel so isolated. You feel like you're the only man on this island, man, and all you got is a coconut. Or you got that ball like Tom Hanks had on the island. All you got is Mr. Wilson. You want somebody else to be there with you, man, to relate with what you're going through, and all you got is Mr. Wilson, Mr. Wilson. So when we first go through our amputations, it is like that. I've heard a number of amputees say that it's a very isolating experience, because when you first go through it, there's nobody, there's nothing, man. It's just you and everybody that's trying to relate to you. They all got their limbs and they're walking around, and you're just laying here going, man, you can't relate to what I'm going through. And it's a tough experience. It really is. And it can be frustrating and it can be hard. But my advice to you is to think about it from this standpoint. Take that positive and take that negative and try to find that positive. It's there. Trust me, it's there. You just got to find it. And that can be the tough part, because it takes us doing what? We got to step outside that self where we're feeling down and depressed and different and ashamed, and we've got all these things. You got to step outside of it for a second. And you got to truly look around and really find the blessing in what you're doing, and where you're at. So that is one thing to think about. And amputation can have a very profound effect on a feeling of loss that affects both the individual and your family. It's going to affect all those levels of your life. It's going to get you, it's going to get your family, it's going to get your work, it's going to get everything, man. So it's going to be a tough situation to cope with and deal with. How you choose to deal with your amputation will really help determine the quality of life that you're going to have. And I hope you caught that. How you choose to deal with your amputation will determine the quality of life that you have, my friend. There was a key element in what I just said. It's really up to you. You will determine how that goes or how it doesn't go. So that's why it's important for you to be able to step outside yourself for a moment to really analyze what's going on, man. It's going to take that. And it's hard because you've got so much going on. There's so many things that are happening. It's going to be one of those things that you really have to spend some time processing and dealing with. I'm reading some comments here, so bear with me. And yes, sometimes how the amputation had to happen, that can really affect us too. But with, yes, that can be happen. It can happen. We get the news that we have to have an amputation, and that can be tough news to process and deal with. And as Glenda says, it can be scary. Yes, it can be very scary, but you will make it through your amputation. I know we all have different levels of health issues that we're going through, but a lot of times, depending on where we're at, amputations are done because if we don't do them, life would cease to exist. Amputations are not something that are done to just, we just feel like cutting off something today. Amputations are done as life-saving procedures. They are done to better your life. And with this day and age of prosthetics, people are able to return to life and get back at it. But remember what I just said to you before we even got down this road, okay? I really want you to think about the last thing I said to you. Even though an amputation is such a profound loss that's going to affect every level of your life as an individual and your family, It's how you choose to deal with that amputation that's going to determine the quality of life you're going to have. You are your biggest weapon. You are your best resource in dealing with this. You. So being a individual with an amputation, I always say to people, you're going to need some motivation, you're going to need some determination, and you're going to need to be stubborn just a little bit, because it's going to take that. You don't want to quit. You won't give up. You're going to keep trying. You're going to keep putting one foot in front of the other, no pun intended, but you're going to keep going at it. You got to be relentless. It's going to take work. It's hard. Not just the physical therapy part of it, but the mental aspect of it also. And when we are very independent individuals, and then we have to become dependent uh, and feeling a loss of control over our lives, uh, that is probably one of the things that is the most frustrating and probably one of the hardest things for people to really cope with and deal with when it comes to how you're going to cope with your amputation. So keep that in mind. Let your support team help you. Let your support team assist you. Don't fight everybody because you are used to doing everything on your own. You've got to, yes, just like my man Ron West said here, learning to adapt to a new normal after an amputation. That is so crucial, so key, and so important. Um, yes, you got to keep putting one foot in front of the other and never give up. Thanks for that, Ron. So just I wanted to, and like I said, for those of you who are just tuning in, I wanted to talk about this because I had an experience with a young man who was on my 600-pound life. Uh, we had talked about him being on the show, and through some unfortunate situation, he passed away. And I wanted to talk about this show tonight because coping with our amputation is such a missed point with healthcare providers, but yet it's all I see in the social media sites that I am part of on Facebook. And I see this question come up repeatedly through new amputees, old amputees, uh, and it's something that really needs to be talked about. And I wanted to address it a little bit tonight and spend some time on it. We will come back and do a big official show on this, but tonight I really wanted to just kind of like put some stuff out there and really make myself available to some of you that listen to the show, that if any of you are experiencing this tonight, I want to make sure you know that you're not alone. That is the biggest thing I want you to know. And you are your most valuable tool in recovering and getting back to an active life. It's you. Hello, Susan. Uh, I can't stress that enough. It's going to be you. All my brothers and sisters out there, amputees, Amp Nation, it's you, my man. It's you, my strong go girl woman. It's us. You're going to be your most valuable asset when it comes to getting back your life. Okay. And I want you to take that control over making a decision to be okay, comfortable, happy, and resilient to the amputation, not giving in no matter what. Also, letting those that are around us, our family, help us and accept that support. And I think the biggest thing is guiding them, letting them understand, know how they can help you through this journey. That's probably going to be one of the biggest things. And I think one of the things I want to talk about is when you're in these situations, we had somebody talk about anger and adapting. We need to recognize that your frustration at being dependent on others will affect you in a negative way. So the frustration, when it hits, you need to realize I'm frustrated because of this. So because that frustration can lead into other things, being angry, venting, lashing out to family members who are only there trying to help you. So we got to catch it when we're getting a little frustrated with things. We got to catch it, and we got to refocus that energy into positive energy. Pull away from the negative, put it into the positive. Okay. Um, I also believe in talking to people as much as you can. It might not even be about your amputation. It could just be you just want to talk to somebody, man. Talk to people, finding those outlets to be able to talk and have someone who's going to listen, and not talk. But you want to have somebody who's actually going to be an active listener to you also. I highly recommend Amputee Coalition of America and getting peer visits. I'm saying that because I am one and I'm certified through them and I do a lot of this. And a lot of times it's not so much as helping people. I've done a couple peer visits. It's cool to help people and I get them help with their prosthetics. But sometimes a peer visit is just going in and hearing somebody and listening to them and talking to their family. And you help them that way. So uh, being able to find that outlet, I think that's a big thing too. Talking to people, finding people that'll listen, and you know, you have to find people where you can ask for that honest feedback, man. Uh, it might be a situation to where you think that you're being a little bit of a knucklehead. Uh, get that feedback. Hey, am I being a prick? Am I being a mean person? Am I being somebody that's unreasonable? And somebody's got to tell you, hey man, yeah, you need to lighten up. People are trying to help you and you're not understanding that. That's what we're all trying to do. I know I come across that sometimes. Everybody's trying to help somebody and he's not having anything to do with it. But he doesn't see he's doing it. And sometimes you need that honest feedback to, sit back, be quiet, and let us help you. Uh, it's tough to hear sometimes, but sometimes that's the truth. And we need that sometimes when we're going through something like this. Um, Now, I want us to also understand this much too. Going through an amputation changes us. Now, how does it change us? So that's the question I want you to think about. Because and the reason I'm bringing this up is because I want you to appreciate how your body still works even after an amputation. Because the human body is the most amazing tool that you will ever own in your entire life. Your human body is an amazing thing. And just because we lose a limb, an arm, or leg, we still have this awesome mechanical wizardry in our possession that still does amazing things. So being without a leg or a limb or an arm, we still have access to this amazing body of ours. And I want you to see it as amazing because I think a lot of times when we go through an amputation, we don't see ourselves the same way. We see ourselves as less or lesser. Don't think that way, my friends. You are an amazing person. You are an amazing being, even with one less limb. In fact, being without one less limb makes you even more amazing and incredible when you get up and do the things that you do. So keep that in mind, okay? I want you to keep that in mind. Hey, Christian, I got to get in touch with you, buddy, about your basketball league. So don't you be running off, okay? Um, and speaking on that right there, this young man, they have a wheelchair basketball league in Sacramento, and I want to do a story on them. Speaking of the amazingness of the body, people are doing amazing things every day with not having a complete able body. So don't get hooked into this or believe into or feed into this body image thing to where you need to be ashamed of anything. You should be proud. You should feel awesome because people that are missing limbs that are out there doing things that normal people that are doing with all their limbs, think about how incredible that one aspect of what you're doing with less of a limb or less of limbs. That is something that you should be just amazed by. Appreciate how well your body works for you, even with the loss of a limb. Recognize what you have rather than what you don't have, what you lost. Focus on what you got, not what you don't got. Consider the strength it took And it is going to take for you to get as far as you have with that less of a limb. Look at all the amazing things that you're going to be able to accomplish with that less of a limb. So I want to really drill that home, because that's one of the biggest points we're talking about. How do you take the negative, turn it into a positive? Well, that's how you do it. The young kid that I just put up his interview that we had, the no-handed bandit, he was playing in a basketball tournament and he's missing both of his hands. That's amazing, man. I'm sorry. I'm going to call it. Facebook may ban me for this, but that's kick ass, brother. That is what I'm talking about right there. That if that doesn't get you fired up and get you out there and get you ready to go conquer life, I don't know what will. But seeing that in a young man like that, that's awesome, man. That's what it's all about. That is, man, that is what it's all about. So you have your situation. Turn that negative into a positive. And remember, you have probably one of the most awesome, amazing tools, piece of machinery on the planet. You have your human body. So coping with amputation, remember, you lost a limb, you didn't lose your life. You still have this amazing body that you can work with. And trust me, with the proper prosthetics, you're going to get up and you're going to do some amazing things. Okay. I am so glad most of you joined me tonight that we could talk about this. I want you to think about what I said. I want you to take care of yourself physically, mentally, and spiritually to deal with coping with the amputation and limb loss. And I want us to focus on all the amazing things we can do rather than what we can't do. Because I think when you truly look at it from that way and from that perspective, the big void that you're looking at actually gets a lot smaller. We do have to deal with some of the issues that we have, some of the feelings and emotions that we have, the anger, the depression, the why me, the guilt, the grief. We're going to have to deal with those. And the only way you're going to deal with those, my friend, is to really take a step back, step outside yourself, and start peeling away some of the layers. Get down to why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? And I will guarantee you 9 times out of 10, that big issue will get smaller, because it's not really a big issue that we're dealing with. It's us that is making it a big issue, because we're probably thinking that other people are seeing it different than the way we're seeing it. And I just want to read what Christian wrote here. The stigma about amputees being in a wheelchair or using prosthetics while in a wheelchair. They are tools to pursue personal excellence. Man, you are right. You're hitting it right on the head. And that is so true. It is so true, Christian. Thank you for that. And I hope each one of you will read each other's comments and talk about this more, even once we end this show. Keep posting in here, because I do continue to read and I will continue to post stuff. But coping with our amputation, it's really up to us. We have to sit back, deal with some of the emotions that are coming from it. But I think the biggest thing I want to say is the emotions that you're dealing with are normal. They are so normal. And we all have been through it. We've all been down that path. And when you really look at it, a lot of us has come out the other end doing very well, my friends. And I believe in each and every one of you that you can do it as well. That's why I do this show. That's why I take the time to prep shows, to put people on the show, to show you all the amazing amputees that are out there doing stuff. From Ronald Mann to Shahali Ayers to No Handed Bandit to Dave Gannis to One Legged Spartan. We're going to have even more people on this show to show you the amazing things you truly could do with that amazing body of yours, minus the limb that you have. You can still truly be an amazing person. And keep that in mind as you go through your day and your life. And I cannot thank all of you enough for tuning into this show and spending time with me here at Amp Life Talk Radio. Tonight was a Facebook show more than one on our normal platform. But if you do, go over to the normal platform. In fact, let me post that for you guys so that you can go right over and check out the show with No Handed Bandit, because it was a great interview. Again, I apologize for some of the sound on it because it was done through Skype, but I managed to clean it up and make it sound a little bit better, I hope. Hopefully the link that I just posted, you can click on that and go over and listen to the show. I'll actually post it again on Facebook for you right now. And if you look on my site, you'll see, actually, I'm gonna post it right now on the Amp Life Talk radio page. So just stay tuned, look for that, and it's being posted over there right now. I want to thank all of you for tuning in to another show of Amp Life Talk Radio. You guys are amazing. You make this show wonderful, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks again for joining me for another episode of Amp Life Talk Radio.
You are listening to Sean Harrison on Amp Life Talk Radio, a place for amputees and those dealing with limb loss. The views expressed on the show by the host, co-hosts, and guests are their own. Always seek medical advice from a licensed medical professional.